The sky did not fall. It answered. At 2:41 a.m., every satellite above Earth received the same signal. 3 sharp pulses, perfectly timed, repeating like a heartbeat. Astronomers would later say it was beautiful. Soldiers would say it was a warning. Ordinary people would remember only the moment their phones stopped working and the stars seemed to shift, just slightly, out of place. Humanity was not ready. But humanity never is. Dr. Mara Ellison was alone in the Lunar Deep Array when the signal appeared. The moon base was quiet at night, the kind of silence that made even experienced scientists uneasy. She stared at the data scrolling across her screen, her breath slowing as the pattern repeated again. "This isn't noise," she whispered. Natural space radiation was messy. Random. This was not. This was structured, deliberate, intelligent. Within minutes, observatories on Earth confirmed it. Within an hour, every major government knew. Within a day, humanity made first contact, without ever meaning to. The objects arrived without sound. They slipped into orbit like shadows, vast and smooth, their surfaces dark as if light itself avoided them. There were 12 ships. Each one larger than any structure humanity had ever built in space. They did not fire. They did not speak. They simply waited. Panic followed predictably. Markets crashed. Cities flooded with rumors. Religious groups called it judgment. Governments called emergency meetings that lasted until voices broke and coffee ran out. 3 days later, the message came. It appeared everywhere at once, on screens, radios, emergency channels. A single symbol resolved into words, translated with terrifying accuracy. Do not resist. This planet is now under reclamation. No threats. No explanation. Just certainty. The aliens called themselves the Caravel Dominion, a civilization older than recorded human history. Their message was simple. Earth was biologically valuable, strategically placed, and poorly defended. Humanity was irrelevant. They gave humanity 1 week to comply. General Isaac Monroe listened to the broadcast from an underground command center in Nevada. He had fought wars on Earth. He had seen nations fall. But he had never felt this small. "Our weapons?" he asked quietly. A young analyst swallowed. "Ineffective, sir. Their shields absorb kinetic force, energy weapons, even nuclear output. So we can't hurt them." "No, sir." Monroe leaned back, eyes closed. "Then they think they've already won." The invasion began on the 8th day. Caravel landing structures descended into oceans and deserts alike, reshaping land with precision machines. They didn't bomb cities. They didn't slaughter populations. They ignored them. Humans were obstacles, not enemies. That hurt more than fear. In Nairobi, engineer Jonah Reyes watched alien machines dismantle a power grid he helped build. In Sao Paulo, medical student Lila Moreau treated injuries caused not by weapons, but collapsing infrastructure. In Alaska, a remote listening post vanished in a white flash when it got too close to a Dominion harvester. Humanity fought anyway. Jets screamed into the sky. Missiles launched in coordinated waves. Entire arsenals were emptied in defiant fury. Nothing worked. Every attack vanished against invisible shields. Every sacrifice bought seconds at best. The Dominion did not respond. They did not need to. 3 weeks in, global communications fractured. Nations stopped pretending they were in control. People stopped asking who was in charge and started asking who was still alive. And yet, something unexpected happened. Humans adapted. Jonah Reyes noticed the alien machines reacted slightly slower when faced with chaotic input, multiple unpredictable actions at once. Lila discovered their medical scans couldn't identify human adrenaline spikes correctly. A hacker collective in Eastern Europe realized the alien data transmissions favored efficiency over redundancy. They were perfect. And perfect systems hate randomness. Deep beneath the ruins of an old research facility, a small group gathered: scientists, soldiers, civilians. No flags. No ranks. Just people who refused to disappear quietly. They didn't call it a rebellion. They called it a conversation. If we can't outgun them, Jonah said, staring at a projected alien schematic, we outthink them. Someone laughed, short, bitter. There's centuries ahead of us. Jonah nodded. So were we, compared to ants. Silence followed. Then Lila spoke softly. Ants still change the ground. Above them, caravel ships moved with calm confidence. They believed humanity was already finished. They had no idea what humans do best when cornered. They were about to learn. The Caravel Dominion believed Earth was already conquered. That belief was their first real mistake. Across the planet, small human groups began to do something the Dominion never predicted. They stopped trying to win and started trying to learn. In the ruins of Jakarta, former systems analyst Priya Nundakamor crouched inside a half-flooded subway tunnel, her laptop balanced on a crate. Above her, a Caravel survey drone hovered silently, its smooth shell glowing faintly blue. It was mapping the city, feeding data back to orbit. Priya wasn't trying to destroy it. She was listening. Got it, she whispered into her headset. Signal burst confirmed. Thousands of kilometers away, in an abandoned radio telescope in Chile, Professor Ethan Cole smiled for the first time in weeks. That's not just telemetry, he said. That's command logic. The Dominion didn't encrypt the way humans did. They didn't need to. Their civilization was built on absolute unity, shared protocols, shared objectives, shared thinking. No internal conflict. No deception. No imagination. That night, human servers across the world came alive in secret. Old satellites were repurposed. Broken fiber lines were reconnected. Pirate relays hummed in basements, caves, and ruined data centers. Humanity was building something invisible. Meanwhile, the Dominion advanced. Massive atmospheric processors rose over coastlines, altering weather patterns with terrifying precision. Crops failed. Storms intensified. It wasn't cruelty, it was efficiency. Earth was being reshaped for Caravel biology. General Isaac Monroe watched satellite images with clenched fists. They're not killing us, he muttered. They're replacing us. His second-in-command, Colonel Aisha Rahman, nodded grimly. Then we don't fight like a species that's losing. We fight like one that refuses to be overwritten. The first real human victory didn't look like one. In the Mojave Desert, a Caravel resource convoy moved across the sand, 5 hovering carriers surrounded by drones. No shields flared. No alarms sounded. Then the ground collapsed. Human engineers had rerouted old fault lines, detonating controlled seismic charges. The convoy didn't explode. It fell, tilting just enough for its formation to break. That was all the opening humanity needed. Swarm drones, cheap, crude, unpredictable, rose from underground launchers. They weren't strong enough to damage the carriers. They didn't need to be. They confused the targeting systems. For 3.2 seconds, the Dominion convoy lost synchronization. And in those seconds, something extraordinary happened. The carriers fired on each other. The explosion was small, localized, militarily insignificant, psychologically devastating. Across Dominion command structures, alerts cascaded. Machines recalibrated. Logic trees re-evaluated. How did a pre-spacefaring species cause cross-targeting? A Caravel overseer demanded. There was no answer. Human networks lit up with quiet celebration. Not cheers. Not relief. Just a shared understanding. They could bleed. In orbit, the Dominion adjusted tactics. Drones increased. Patrols randomized. Data flows intensified. And humanity adapted again. Priya's team discovered something critical. The Dominion processed information in layered certainty. When 2 equally valid inputs conflicted, their systems hesitated. Humans, on the other hand, thrived in contradiction. In the Arctic Circle, a remote human team transmitted false weather data combined with real gravitational readings. Dominion platforms stalled, unsure which input to trust. In the Mediterranean, fishermen used outdated sonar patterns to lure alien sensors away from evacuation routes. None of it was decisive. All of it mattered. Lila Moreau, now running a mobile medical unit in southern France, treated a wounded resistance fighter. "Why do you keep going back out there?" she asked gently. The man winced, then smiled. "Because they don't understand us. And that scares them." She realized he was right. The Dominion had faced countless species before. Stronger, faster, more advanced. But none like this. Humanity didn't fight as a single perfect machine. Humanity fought as chaos, creative, emotional, stubborn chaos. Then came the counterstrike. Without warning, a Dominion vessel descended over the Pacific. Not a harvester. Not a processor. A warship. It fired once. The shockwave flattened an island chain. Millions watched the footage in silence as the ocean boiled and the sky burned. The message followed immediately. Further resistance will result in planetary sterilization. Fear spread like wildfire. Human networks faltered. Some resistance cells went dark. Some leaders argued for surrender. In Nevada, Monroe stood before a small group of exhausted faces. "They want us afraid," he said. "They want us divided." Colonel Rahman crossed her arms. "Are we?" Monroe thought of the hackers, the engineers, the medics, the civilians risking everything. "No," he said quietly. "We're just getting started." Deep underground, in a facility long forgotten by official records, something ancient powered on. A human-built system designed not for order, but for war in uncertainty. Lights flickered. Machines hummed. For the first time since the invasion began, the Dominion felt something unfamiliar ripple through its networks. Doubt. And humanity, bruised and burning, finally began to smile. The Dominion had expected surrender. Instead, they found resistance that refused to behave logically. Across their command network, probability models recalculated again and again. Human activity should have collapsed after the Pacific strike. Fear should have paralyzed them. Infrastructure damage should have ended coordination. None of that happened. Instead, human signals multiplied. Not stronger. Not clearer. Just messier. And that was the problem. Deep beneath the Swiss Alps, a forgotten Cold War bunker roared back to life. Inside, a mixed team of engineers, tacticians, and civilians stood before a circular chamber filled with glowing panels. At its center hovered a shifting lattice of light, unfinished, unstable, and powerful. They called it Ars-Link. It was not a superweapon. It was worse. Ars-Link was a distributed combat intelligence, built to connect thousands of independent human operators without forcing them into one mind. No rigid hierarchy. No central control. Just shared awareness, filtered through human instinct. It had been abandoned decades earlier. Too unpredictable. Too dangerous. Too human. Now, it was exactly what they needed. Jonah Reyes ran his fingers across a console, watching data streams pour in. "They think unity makes them strong," he said. "They don't understand what diversity does." Colonel Aisha Rahman nodded. "They built a perfect sword. We're building 1,000 knives." The first test came sooner than expected. A Dominion warship entered low orbit above South America, preparing to deploy atmospheric processors. Its shields flared confidently, calibrated against every known human weapon. Ars-Link went online. Across the continent, resistance cells received the same message: simple, direct. Act independently. Trust your judgment. No countdown. No formation. No plan the Dominion could predict. Old artillery fired alongside hacked satellites. Drone swarms attacked from impossible angles. Fake signals mimicked retreat while real units advanced. Noise flooded the electromagnetic spectrum. The Dominion warship responded perfectly. And that was the problem. Its systems tried to counter everything at once. For the first time, its shields overloaded, not from power, but from confusion. A railgun slug, fired decades earlier and forgotten in orbit, struck the hull. It wasn't much. But it was enough. The warship didn't explode. It fell. Humanity watched in stunned silence as the alien vessel burned through the atmosphere and crashed into the Amazon basin, shaking the planet. Then the cheering started. Across cities and ruins alike, humans cried, laughed, screamed. Not because the war was over, but because it had truly begun. The Dominion reacted instantly. Fleet formations tightened. Patrols doubled. Orbital weapons armed. And for the first time, they deployed ground executors, towering biomechanical soldiers designed to end planetary resistance. They landed in force. In Cairo, one executor tore through a city block in minutes. In Manila, another dismantled an entire resistance base. Conventional weapons barely slowed them. Hope wavered. Until humans noticed something strange. The executors hesitated near civilians. They're avoiding collateral damage, Lila Moreau realized while treating survivors in a collapsed hospital. They don't want to damage the planet too much. That hesitation cost them. Resistance fighters began drawing executors into populated zones, not to use civilians as shields, but to force the aliens to choose between efficiency and restraint. Humans exploited the delay. Traps. Collapses. Electromagnetic surges built from scavenged parts. Executors fell. One by one. In orbit, Dominion analysts struggled to update models fast enough. Human behavior defied prediction. Emotional decisions disrupted optimal responses. How does a species this fractured coordinate? One overseer demanded. Another answered quietly, they don't coordinate. They adapt. Arslink evolved with every battle. It learned how humans thought under pressure, not to control them, but to amplify their instincts. Humanity wasn't becoming a hive mind. They were becoming something new. Then came the transmission. Not from the Dominion. From Earth. It was sent on every frequency, unencrypted, translated into dozens of languages. A single human voice spoke, not angry, not afraid. Calm. We know you think we're weak, the voice said. We know you believe resistance is pointless. But you made one mistake. The signal paused. You assumed we fight to win quickly. We don't. Images followed, humans rebuilding, sharing food, laughing amid ruins, launching homemade satellites, teaching children underground. We fight to endure. And we are very good at that. Silence followed. Across Dominion fleets, systems processed the message. There was no threat. No demand. Only certainty. For the first time in recorded Dominion history, a planetary conquest stalled. Humanity had not matched their power. Humanity had changed the rules. And somewhere deep within the Dominion Command Core, an ancient directive flickered, one that had not activated in thousands of years. Escalation protocol. Total war. Earth's greatest trial was still ahead. Total war did not begin with explosions. It began with silence. Across Earth's orbit, the Caravel Dominion ships repositioned, not aggressively, not defensively, but with cold precision. Communication channels went dark. Patrol patterns vanished. Even their atmospheric processors slowed. To the untrained eye, it looked like hesitation. To humanity's analysts, it looked like preparation. They're not retreating, Colonel Aisha Rahman said inside the Arslink command hub. They are committing. The first strike came 12 hours later. Not against cities. Not against armies. Against hope. 3 human refuges, massive underground shelters in Siberia, Patagonia, and northern Canada, were erased in coordinated orbital strikes. No warning. No message. Just annihilation. Millions were gone in minutes. Lila Moreau collapsed to her knees when the casualty estimates came in. She had treated refugees from the Patagonia shelter. She knew their names. Their faces. They knew exactly where to hit, she whispered. How did they know? Jonah Reyes stared at the data streams scrolling endlessly across his screen. His hands were shaking. They mapped our emotional centers, he said. Not population density. Morale density. The Dominion had learned something critical. Human strength came from connection. So they attacked connection itself. Global networks fractured under targeted strikes. Power grids failed in cascading blackouts. Food distribution collapsed in several regions. Panic surged where resilience once held. Arslink strained under the load. Not because it was failing, but because humans were hurting. For the first time since activation, the system flagged a warning. Cognitive saturation detected. Humans were reaching their limit. In the ruins of Berlin, a resistance cell was cornered by ground executors. Ammunition ran dry. Evacuation routes collapsed. Their leader, an old schoolteacher named Franz Keller, stood in the open street and raised his hands. Not in surrender. In defiance. "We are still here," he shouted in a cracked voice. The executors fired. The footage spread anyway. So did the reaction. Something changed after that. Not strategy. Not technology. Resolve. Humanity stopped asking if they could win. They started asking how much it would cost, and deciding it was worth it. General Isaac Monroe addressed the remnants of Earth's command structure from a hardened bunker. His voice was hoarse, his face lined deeper than ever. "They want us broken," he said. "They want us to believe survival is mercy." He leaned forward. "We will show them the difference between mercy and submission." Arslink received a new directive, not from command, but from consensus. Permission to escalate. Across the planet, human ingenuity turned desperate. Old fusion reactors were reactivated despite meltdown risk. Experimental weapons were deployed unfinished. Civilian ships were armored and launched into orbit as decoys. Losses mounted. But so did alien casualties. The Dominion began to experience something unprecedented: attrition. Their executors fell faster than they could be replaced. Resource convoys were ambushed relentlessly. Human sabotage made planetary operations inefficient. Unacceptable. Within the Dominion command sphere, debate erupted, quiet, controlled, but real. "This species is damaging long-term reclamation value," one overseer reported. Another replied, "Escalation risks total biosphere loss." The response came after a pause. Then ended quickly. The sky burned again. A Dominion superweapon unfolded above Earth, an orbital lattice designed to strip atmospheres, sterilize surfaces, and reset worlds for recolonization. Total victory. Total extinction. Human sensors detected it instantly. So did Arslink. Inside the Swiss bunker, alarms screamed. Engineers froze. Soldiers cursed. Jonah Reyes felt the truth settle like ice in his chest. "We can't stop that," he said quietly. Silence followed. Then Colonel Rahman asked the question no one wanted to ask. What if stopping it was never the goal? Every eye turned to her. She continued slowly, choosing each word carefully. What if we don't beat them by force, but by consequence? Jonah's mind raced. Data patterns. Dominion logic. Resource dependence. Then his eyes widened. They can't afford to lose their fleet, he said. Not this far from their core systems. Lila looked up. So we don't defend Earth, Jonah said. We threaten them. The plan that followed was insane. And purely human. Arslink would not concentrate power. It would scatter it. Every remaining human ship, drone, and weapon would target Dominion supply lines, not to destroy them outright, but to destabilize navigation across multiple systems. A cascading failure. If the Dominion activated the superweapon, their fleets would be stranded, cut off, isolated, vulnerable. They would win Earth. And lose everything else. Monroe closed his eyes when he heard the plan. Then he nodded. Send the message, he said. The transmission went out on all Dominion channels. We know how you think, the human voice said again. We know what you value. A pause. If Earth dies, your empire fractures. Silence stretched. The orbital lattice continued unfolding. Humans waited, afraid, exhausted, unbroken. For the first time since arriving, the Dominion hesitated. And hesitation, humanity had learned, was enough. The Dominion had never faced a choice like this. Across their vast command network, simulations clashed. Outcomes fractured. Probabilities refused to settle into certainty. For the first time in Dominion history, logic produced no clean solution. Activate the superweapon, and Earth would fall, but the human counteraction would fracture Dominion supply routes across multiple systems. Fleets would be stranded. Colonies isolated. Rivals would sense weakness. Abort the strike, and a lesser species would survive, defiant, blooded, and now proven dangerous. The Dominion did not fear humanity's weapons. They feared what humanity was becoming. On Earth, people waited. Not in neat shelters or command halls, but in ruins, caves, ships, and half-lit bunkers. Parents held children. Soldiers held the line. Engineers watched unstable systems push past safe limits. Arslink pulsed with human presence. Millions of minds connected not by control, but by choice. Jonah Reyes stood before the central console, sweat dripping down his face. "They're stalling," he said. "They're running scenarios." Colonel Aisha Rahman crossed her arms. "Good. Let them think." Above the planet, the orbital lattice paused, half unfolded, like a blade frozen mid-swing. Then a new signal appeared. Dominion Priority Channel. Open broadcast. The alien voice that emerged was calm, measured, ancient. "Humanity of Earth," it said. "You are an inefficient species. Emotion-driven. Fragmented. Yet you have imposed unacceptable cost." The voice paused. "State your terms." No cheers erupted. No victory cries. Only quiet disbelief. General Isaac Monroe stepped forward, his image transmitted through every remaining satellite. "We don't want your worlds," he said. "We don't want your technology. And we don't want revenge." He looked tired. Human. Unimpressive. "We want to be left alone." Silence followed. Then the alien voice returned. "You cannot guarantee future non-aggression." Monroe nodded. "Neither can you." That answer mattered. The Dominion understood deterrence. They understood consequence. What they did not understand, until now, was resolve without dominance. The orbital lattice began to retract. Slowly. Carefully. Across Earth, people watched the sky change. Fires still burned. Cities lay broken. But the end did not come. The Dominion fleet pulled back from low orbit. One by one, the massive ships turned away from Earth. Not defeated, but denied. Before leaving, one final message was transmitted, this one restricted, narrow, deliberate. "To all Dominion forces," the voice commanded. "Earth is designated a resilient world. Future reclamation prohibited." It was a classification used only a handful of times in Dominion history. Worlds too costly to conquer. Too dangerous to ignore. The war was over. Humanity did not celebrate immediately. There were funerals to hold. Names to remember. Entire regions to rebuild. Billions of lives had been altered forever. Arslink was shut down 3 days later, not because it failed, but because humans knew when to let go. The system had done what it was meant to do. It had amplified humanity, not replaced it. Months passed. Trade routes reopened. Crops were replanted. Power grids rose again, stronger, smarter, decentralized. Nations did not return to how they were before. They returned better. Lila Moreau stood in a rebuilt hospital, watching children run down the corridor. She smiled softly. Humanity had survived not because it was strongest, but because it cared. Jonah Reyes helped design new orbital defenses, not weapons meant to conquer, but systems meant to warn, adapt, and respond. General Monroe retired quietly. Colonel Rahman taught strategy, using Earth survival as a case study in every academy that followed. And far beyond human space, within Dominion records, Earth was no longer listed as prey. It was listed as a warning. Do not underestimate this species. They fight best when losing. They endure. They adapt. They do not break. Humanity looked up at the stars again, not with fear, but with understanding. The universe was vast. dangerous, unforgiving. And humanity was ready. Not because it sought war, but because when war came, humanity went to war together.